Tao Meeting Archives, July 19th, 2015. The Tao of Meditation by Ed Monaghan.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting beginning ritual, everyone. 起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位点传师一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
Well, it's good to see everyone, or at least communicate with everyone today. And Bill, thank you for your message. I've been particularly aware of those commercials recently as well. Strong point and well taken. Particularly the Carl's Jr. ones that have all the hot girls that are eating the big sloppy burgers. And I get it, but somehow I don't think those nice, thin young ladies probably have that as the main staple of their diet. But the point gets across. Today, what I would like to do is, which again fits in, I think, with the theme that Bill established, is talk about different forms of mindfulness-based practice. Last week, I discussed yoga because that is the camp that we were running through with our kids at our school. And I've had a number of people ask me about this topic previously. So I thought that I'd share something about it with our group, and in hopes that someone might find it useful. With regard to meditative practice, as I'm sure many of you know, there's no shortage of approaches to the ways in which one can practice meditation, but they are generally broken down into three subcategories, and ones that are relatively familiar to most folks these days. The first is mindfulness-based meditation, which is essentially the recognition and acceptance of moment-to-moment experience. We hear a lot about that in the media today, and I'm going to cover that topic in today's talk, focusing primarily on that. And if you will bear with me, lead just a brief practice of that form of meditation. This was, or became, or is continuing to become more and more popular in clinical circles. It was probably made the most famous by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is a researcher and psychiatrist who studied Theravada Buddhist practice, which is the Southeast Asian, or primarily Southeast Asian, but you see it exhibited in forms of practice such as the Zazen and Chan Buddhism as well. But took those types of meditative practices and essentially removed all components that would hint at some sort of religious or spiritual practice, and distilled it down to the core essence, and developed a system that's referred to as MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction, which has become quite successful in many clinical and behavioral circumstances, and it's gained much ground in many university settings and many clinical settings. So that's going to be the subject of our exploration today. But I also wanted to discuss just briefly the other forms of practice, which tend to be centered around concentration-based meditative practice and contemplative meditative practice. Concentration-based meditative practice is directing one's focus toward a single thought or action. So this would be seen in visualization, in concentration on a single object like a candle, a mantra, or a single directed thought. And we'll explore and discuss that later in weeks to come, but that's the general idea. And then contemplative uh, meditative practice is the deep or full consideration of an esoteric principle or ideal. Now, it can also be something as simplistic as contemplating a blade of grass. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an esoteric principle or ideal, although it tends to be oriented toward that direction more often than not. And again, we'll explore that further in weeks to come. In mindfulness-based meditation, I pulled this this description off of UCLA's website. This is the UCLA Mindful Awareness Research Center. Diana Winston is the director of mindfulness studies. She comes to my classes at UCLA and leads our student in mindfulness-based meditative practice as part of my curriculum as a guest on a quarterly basis. And I found this to be a useful description of our topic. So mindful awareness can be defined as paying attention to the present moment experiences with openness, curiosity, and a willingness to be with what is. It is an excellent antidote for the stresses of modern times. It invites us to stop, breathe, observe, and connect with one's inner experience. There are many ways to bring mindfulness into one's life, such as meditation, yoga, art, or time in nature. Mindfulness can be trained systematically and can be implemented in daily life by people of any age, profession, or background. In the last 10 years, significant research has shown mindfulness to address health issues such as lower blood pressure and boost the immune system, increase attention and focus, including aid to those suffering from ADHD, help with difficult mental states such as anxiety and depression, fostering well-being and less emotional reactivity, and thicken the brain in areas in charge of decision-making, emotional flexibility, and empathy. So there are a significant number of benefits to this type of practice, and it's very open-ended. So one can find means by which this practice can be implemented in a variety of ways, whether it's as it referred to in the description, as art, music, being one with nature, simply experiencing being in nature. I think we've all certainly experienced that. And I found this to be extraordinarily useful. In fact, it's the basis of my work and research there. I work with a neuroscientist at the Mindful Awareness Research Center on the development of programs that incorporate cognitive learning skills with mindfulness-based movement practice. And that's what we do with our kids here at the center, particularly kids who have attention deficit disorders, Asperger's, autism, a variety of different conditions. And we found it to be extraordinarily useful when it comes to seeing these young people overcome obstacles that are set forth in their life. So there's a clear benefit to this type of practice. Now, I would, this is how this ties in perfectly with Bill's subject, I think. My wife walked by as as Bill was giving his talk, and shook her head and said, "We're living what made Rome fall." And I thought that was particularly poignant in that this degree of excess, I think, permeates the essence of a lot of our psyches and what we consider to be the creation of a successful life, particularly in the American mindset where more is always better. But then and that is certainly characteristic of the American mindset, but then I began to question, is that really more of a manifestation of simply human nature. And the thing that came to me immediately was that last night we have my brother-in-law and his wife and daughter who have moved in with us. They just moved back recently from Istanbul. My brother-in-law's wife is Turkish, and we've moved into a new neighborhood recently. And last week, some of our neighbors very kindly came to the door and gave us some cookies and introduced themselves. And Najla, who is my sister-in-law, I suppose that's the correct term, had made a dessert for them and walked it over last night. And it just so happened that a bunch of the other neighbors were visiting their house, and they were having a little gathering, a little get-together. Well, when we went in, there were a number of neighbors there, and I found it very interesting that I was the only native-born American in the group. It's even ironic that I say that because both my wife and her brother are literally Native Americans, so they're actually part of the First Nations, which is from Canada, and so they're really kind of first dibs on the continent if we talk in real terms. But anyway, you get my point. I'm from Kentucky and was born there. Everybody else was either Canadian, Iranian, Jordanian, a variety of cultures from the Middle East. And it was wonderful because there was this huge feast laid out on the island in our neighbor's kitchen. And it was filled with baklava and I don't know the terms for most of the food, but man, it was really good. But I looked at that and I kind of thought the same thing that I thought when looking at the hamburger commercial. Holy cow, look at all of this, the enormous amount of food here. And folks are sitting around stuffing their face until they can't really fit any more in their stomach. And as I was participating in the communication, observing this experience, and that brought to mind this thought of, do we just naturally follow this path? Is this our base nature, survival instinct, the root chakra of having to feast because we fear that there is nothing else that will ever come? We're preparing for starvation. And it's an interesting thought to contemplate. We certainly don't have to work hard for our food these days, at least not where we live. And then how do we combat these issues? Clearly, as Derek alluded to with the Heart Attack Cafe, or whatever the name of the place was, that it's all fun and good and kind of funny to talk about, but really, do we want that type of misery? Do we really want to feel that? The pain associated with that degenerative health, as he talked about with his friend who passed away? Well, I find that a great many people who visit us at our center, that is a vexing issue for them. They can't lose weight. They've tried numerous methods of weight reduction, and they have not been successful. And the primary issue is that they're simply unaware of the thought process. And without being aware of the thoughts, how can we choose to direct the thoughts? We can. That's what mindfulness is all about: becoming aware, accepting as it truly is, and then through that being able to make the conscious choice, the elevation of consciousness, so that we can change the nature of our outcomes. What is that? Well, it's the equivalent of karma. How do we change karma? The only way that I'm aware of is through elevation of our awareness. and then choosing a course of action, taking action, placing it toward that end, and then allowing it to resolve however the universe sees fit to resolve it. So that being said, I'd like to offer you a couple of links. I know that Jeff reposts these things. I don't know if he does the slideshows or not, but I've provided 2 links. The first is a link to the Mindful Awareness Research Center's page that has MP3 files of different forms of mindfulness-based practice, meditations that are led by Diana Winston. And there are a number of them that are very useful. If for some reason or that link is too complicated, you can just go to marc.ucla.edu and poke around on there, and I'm sure you'll be able to find them with a relative degree of ease. And then secondly, I'd like to offer an app for, I think they make it for Android phones now, but they certainly have it for iPhones, which is called Stop, Breathe, and Think. Now, this was developed by one of my fellow students, whose name is Jamie Price. She's a student of Lama Chodak Gyatso Numpa, who I've referred to previously, who's one of my former Tibetan teachers. And she developed a whole program called Tools for Peace, which is a wonderful program for young people to develop and facilitate peaceful behavior and understanding and mindfulness between them. And this app is terrific. It was also developed, one of the members of the Sangha is Katie Lang, who is the singer, wonderfully talented lady. And she's offered some of her meditative practices that also are from, I believe, Lama Gyatso as well. And if you download that app, it's super simple, and it's a terrific app where you can just click on it and it will lead you through the process. You don't have to do anything. Jamie will literally go through the successive steps, and based on your particular emotional condition at the time and physiological condition, will kind of pre-program a couple of meditations that you can just punch the button and go right through. So it tends to be extremely useful and very user-friendly. So that, having said that, as promised, I'd like to lead just a brief meditation for you. And again, this will only take about 3 minutes, if you'll bear with me, so I hope it doesn't annoy anyone that I'm doing this, but if we can give it a go. So to start off with, arrange yourself, however you might be sitting, to where your back is straight. So you'll sit toward the front of your chair, and you can lean back on something, that's okay, but it's preferable to sit with your back erect. You can place your hands in a position that is comfortable for you, whatever that may be. If you like, place them on your knees, just for comfort. Allow your eyes to gently close, and start by simply noticing your emotional and mental state. Where are you? Do you feel calm, relaxed? Do you feel any anxiety, fear, anger? Wherever your state of mind or state of being happens to be, just simply observe it and allow it to be without any desire to change or shift from its current state. Take a moment and just check in. Now shift your focus to the body. Begin at the top of your head and relax the musculature. Relax the forehead, the face, throat and shoulders. Relax your arms, chest, abdomen. Move down through the hips, legs, all the way to the feet and toes. Be aware of any tension and release anything you find. Now gently shift your focus to the breath. Simply follow the breath as it moves in through the nostrils, nasal passages, down the trachea, into the lungs, and out again. Take 30 seconds and just simply be with the breath. Slowly allow your eyes to open. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Let it out through the mouth. Very good. So that is the root of the mindfulness-based practice. There are many ways to approach it, many different forms of mindfulness-based meditative practice, but the core of it is just simply being. And I think if you did that with me, it took us all of about 2 to 3 minutes, it's clear that even if you were relaxed to begin with, you're probably a little bit more relaxed after doing that. And much as Derek had mentioned and Bill had mentioned previously about the ritual, how that sets a tone. It sets our mind to a particular vibration. And so this form of meditative practice, the ritual being one of those forms of meditative practice, sets a tone. A higher level of contemplation and understanding, hopefully, to where we gear our mind toward the spiritual center, and our actions and our awareness begins to merge with that, so that rather than being focused on these survival instincts that drive us to gluttony and drive us to excess, that we can recognize that we can certainly exist on less, and that it's far more efficient from a physiological perspective for us to be able to accomplish that. So, perfect timing because the phone's ringing. So with that, before my machine picks up, I will bid you adieu and thank you very much for listening today.
Thank you, Ed. That's a rather appropriate and fitting ending. And I want to share with everyone that I myself have been looking into mindfulness practice quite a bit recently. Ed himself has been involved with mindfulness research for decades now. There's a large body of work from academia looking into every aspect of mindfulness practices, and these have now been formalized around multiple courses, training, most of which are free on the internet. What Ed has recommended, MARC resources at UCLA. MARC is simply Mindfulness Awareness Research Center. Now, that particular mark, we also, on our Facebook group, in our Facebook group, we have our own mark, MARK, who will be posting links every now and then. So I'll be asking him to post a link to the UCLA mark, MARC, Mindfulness Awareness Research Center. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying very good. That's great. Thanks for being able to do that. I think it's helpful.
What Ed has led everyone through is one, it resembles a very well-known meditation in the mindfulness practice, the body scan meditation. It's oftentimes taught as a beginning meditation, and also because it is so incredibly useful and relaxing, many people hang on to the practice long after. So body scan, all one word. I would urge you to look that up as well. Let's go ahead and do the meeting closing ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，持架深鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位点传世一鞠躬，结班一鞠躬。Okay, guys, we are done.
Join the Tao meeting live to participate in the questions and commentary. For more information, go to http://taoism.net/tao/connect-online.